All right, cool. Welcome back, guys, for another episode of the State of E-commerce. This week, we are excited to have Ram Menon of SellerApp. Ram, how are you?
I would say wonderful. Just
Wonderful.
enjoying the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, Ben and I are here to bring on guests to talk a little bit about the state of e-commerce and what's going on. Obviously, as last year is wrapping up, record sales in terms of e-commerce all around the world. We're gonna take a look into what 2021 looks like, but a little bit about Ram. He's worked with Amazon sellers for over 7 years in terms of sales and operational strategies for business growth. And he's going to talk a little bit about SellerApp today himself and kind of what are some of the emerging strategies and conditions and trends. So Ram, like I said, very happy to have you. And why don't we jump in by talking a little bit about yourself and SellerApp?
Thank you for the quick introduction, TJ. Thank you again, Ben. As you guys said, right? So we've been in the business for close to 7 years. So SellerApp is an all-in-one e-commerce platform, right? So what we try to do is try to help our sellers in every possible way, right from the basic understanding of finding out what products to sell, to all the way being a mature seller, trying to help them in terms of advertising, in terms of keywords, in terms of understanding what is the profitability level. Especially since the market trends have changed, from 2019 to 2020, we have seen a tremendous improvement in growth with sellers, and also at the same time the dependency on data companies like us, right? So since we are able to kind of pull in the e-commerce data, at a vast level, we are able to kind of use technology and data and easily provide information to clients to ensure it's quick, right? I mean, rather than wasting time downloading reports using Excel files and kind of doing manual work. It's a one-time solution where you quickly log in everything, you access your account, and everything is in an instant flow, right? It's kind of like you go to a supermarket store, let's say a Walmart, or any of the Amazon stores itself, and you just get everything possible. So we try to incorporate as much as possible, and then we try to ensure that everything is given to the client at the ready stage itself.
So Ram, I love what you said about empowering your sellers to make data-driven decisions and empower your brands to make data-driven decisions. What are some of the biggest data points that you saw in 2020 that you think sellers have used to set themselves up for success here going forward?
So that's a really interesting question, Ben. Since end of 2019, I would say, it was kind of a simple thing. As usual, the sales were increasing in Amazon, or at least in Walmart, right? The regular Christmas series, right when, let's say, 2020 Feb hit, when the first news broke out, we were unsure what's going to happen, right? The whole world was in a different situation. Let's say, I think in the month of March, we did not see a dip, right, in terms of our customers, and our customers was there. In the month of, let's say, I think April and May, we suddenly saw an increase in terms of the customers, right? And that's when we kind of realized, okay, this might be the future, right? This might be the trend going forward for the next, maybe a couple of months at that point in time, right? We always thought, it's going to be 2-3 months, then we're going to get back to normal. But unfortunately, that did not happen, and even today, it's continuing, right? And some of the the bigger trends we really noticed that obviously 2 or 3 really important categories in Amazon, right? Kind of at least specific focus on Amazon and even Walmart, right? What we realize is one was obviously the medical category. That was purely all the masks, right? The N95 masks, the hand sanitizers. The second was since everyone was working from home, I'm sure that all of us are working from home from now itself. Was the all office equipment. So let's say the desk, the mouse, the TV monitors, the laptop, the fancy, let's say foldable desk, right? And then to actually figuring out what needs to be done at home, right? Then from your gym equipment, because people couldn't go out. One of the other biggest trends we saw that people were actually trying to even renovate the house sitting at home, trying to get the tools, trying to get all the home improvement stuff, so that they would also kill off time, right? Because at the end of the day, what we realized was sitting at home, you probably ended up doing 20 hours of work, but that cannot sustain over a couple of months, right? So I think from the period of March all the way till May, June, we saw a tremendous increase, right? And there was a growth which was unexpected, right? And I think from our numbers purely in terms of what we saw in terms of data, SellerApp saw, I'd say close to 40% increase in terms of new products being added, right? So I think in 2019 we saw close to 500 million products being added, but if I look at 2020 numbers, it was 40% higher. We saw people trying to sell everything possible, and that's obviously one of the things we realized was one, obviously there was difficult situations. People are trying to make money. We understood that, and we were trying to help as much as possible. At the same time, they were trying to make as much as and as quick as possible. Right? People are losing jobs, and they thought the easiest business could be the e-commerce business. And we saw a tremendous increase, and we had to make a careful decision as well,
Mhm.
because we don't want to give dreams and give hopes to customers, and then 2 months down the lane they invest probably $20,000, and then they say, "Hey guys, it's not working," right? So we had to make the strategic move at some stage, and make a and help them out as well, right? Help them and understand that, hey, it's a long term game. It's like setting up
Right.
your business, right? You need to
So it
ensure
sounds
that
like we have sellers who are really adapting to the market and understanding what they saw in the end of 2019, what unfolded in 2020, and really just diversifying their businesses to one, meet the demands of the market out there, and then secondarily adapt and overcome whether there were challenges to run their businesses successfully.
correct. I mean, yeah, I mean I think especially the brands, right? I mean, one of the biggest trends we saw was brands giving more focus to e-commerce marketplace, right? Usually a customer would go to a retail store, buy the goods, get out. But what we're seeing the brands in the last 8 months, and even continuing until let's say the last week, right? They are really understood that e-commerce is the future, right? I mean, this trend, even with the vaccine coming up, right? This trend is probably going to still be there, uh, with the new strain coming out from the UK and other marketplaces, right? I mean, this trend is going to probably continue for the next 3-4 years, and it's like a side business, right? I mean, you have your
Yeah.
retail store, you have your online website, but then let's say Amazon, Walmart, right? That is the next trend, right? I mean, especially I think one of the biggest trends we saw was Amazon's pantry. It was an easy thing people could easily order, and the boom in terms of that was massive, right? I remember a couple of my friends were there. They were trying to order stuff, and they couldn't get the basic things, and it was difficult, right? And since Amazon had a global presence, right? And it was all. I mean, I would get in touch with my friends probably in the UK, probably in India, probably in Singapore, and they're like, "Oh, I just order stuff from Amazon." Right? And that made it easy, right? I mean, people realize that you don't need to actually go to a store. You can buy stuff online.
Right.
Probably there's a delay, couple of days, but I mean, where do we have to go? I mean, we're going to be sitting at home for the next couple of months, so it didn't matter really for us, right?
No, I
I
think
think
that's such a good point that consumer habits are even changing too, just at a fundamental level. Is that we're in our homes and we want to make our homes, to have maybe every corner of the house be different. We have our workout equipment in one corner, we have our office equipment in another, we have our various hobbies. I know amongst our colleagues at Payoneer, everyone seemingly bought a guitar that's still sitting in that corner waiting to be played. But it's people are adapting, and you're starting from what you're saying. Seller app brands are really starting to adapt and meet those needs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that there's something in Amazon. Amazon introduced something called the business product opportunities, right? They haven't fully released it yet, but that is something they did in 2015.
Hmm.
Right now it's at close to 52 billion market, right? And it's a potential opportunity for any customers, any B2B sellers to see what is working outside of Amazon, and how do we actually incorporate it in Amazon, right? So if there's a certain product which is working in one of the retail stores, okay, what is the market? What is the market outside? And can we actually replicate the same market trends in Amazon? And you're talking in terms of buying a guitar. One of my, I wouldn't say my hobbies, at least, was buying different colors of mask. I would have all the NBA all the NBA ones. I'll have the NFL ones, and I had the different ones with chains. And as the months went by, I could see different types of masks coming out. Right.
right.
The same thing with sanitizers. Right. You had those fancy ones with just the bottle ones, and the other ones with the spray, the UV ones, the UV design ones
Hmm.
now, where you can put your phone and you can clean it up, right? So and the brands kind of realized it. They started adapting the same way. They understood the, let's say, the pulse of the customer, the different searches, right? I mean, if I did look at the search numbers, even the keyword searches, right, in our platform and in Amazon general was increasing. Was increasing in a different level where every single thing you would search online, like it would be the smallest thing, right? It was kind of like, back in the day we would say, how do I do this? You would first thing say you can go check it either on Google or probably on YouTube because someone's already done this. The same trend happened where people would just randomly search things and try to figure out if it's actually there or not.
I mean, and I think connecting a couple of points there, it's in the sense that, consumers are really driving the habit, and the benefit of the marketplace is in the sense that you can buy a guitar and workout equipment and Macs in the same transaction, right? So, really driving sellers to have to go to Amazon or go to any of these marketplaces to really have a key piece of the pie if they want to do anything meaningful. But what that also does is drive more sellers to make the market more competitive. One of the things we talked about on the other day was the need to spend more to see success. And do you want to touch on that and what you guys are seeing through that?
Absolutely. I think, before I head on the spend part, right? So one of the biggest things we did realize was, I think to your point, is diversification, right? In terms of the product line. Customers or the sellers really understood that they cannot just focus on one product. They had to focus on multiple products. And when that happened, one of the biggest things they did realize was a need to increase in spends, right? Need to increase in spends of buying inventory, ensuring that the warehousing solution was there. And the biggest chunk, obviously, and biggest place where they actually had to spend money was the actual advertising, right? The bigger brands kind of realized that they could no longer spend $200,000, $300,000 a month. They probably had to increase to $500,000 because one, the demand was there for the products. Two, as TJ mentioned, competition was alarming, right? For every single product, you had numerous sellers, right? So let's say even today, right? If you type in, let's say, one of the recent customers I spoke to a couple of days ago, I was selling wine glasses. He has over 1,000 SKUs. So for a single search term called wine glass, you find over 8,000 results, right? So 8,000 different products are potentially there selling under the name of wine glass, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
how do you differentiate your product from each other, right? Now, as a brand, you have different opportunities. As a private label, either this price or either try to combination of different things. Now you're a new seller. How do you get it on the first page of Amazon? How do you ensure that customers find your product? You have to spend money, you have to invest, and probably for the first couple of months, you would not make that green profit line. You would be on the red line, and then 6 months down the lane is where probably you'll start hitting break even, right? So, biggest trend we've seen is obviously, specifically the brands. They never used to have I think, a primary presence in Amazon. Maybe a lot of resellers used to sell their product, but when the block hit in March, they kind of realized, hey guys, we need to start selling in Amazon, and it was a tremendous increase. We onboarded a lot of brands, and one of the first things they said was, "Can we reach this goal? Is it going to take 3 months or 6 months?" I'm like, okay. So I did the same process, right? Put in one of the search terms and keywords and said, okay, what are you guys selling? Clothing line? Okay, perfect. Let's search for that. When we did the search, I think one of the clothing lines, it was close to 10,000 products in Amazon. And the weird part is, you will not be able to see 10,000 products in Amazon. There's a
Right.
limitation in Amazon, and there's so many hidden things, right? I mean, there's you probably find 5,000, and you're facing against people from different countries, right? I mean, with different sellers, different market opportunity, and different money they have, right? So it's a long game, but it's an interesting game.
So off the same vein of diversification, right? You have X partner that's selling their wine glasses, for example, right? And if they're only selling on one marketplace, just as you mentioned, they're selling against 7,999 other wine glasses. So that competition is pretty high. Can you speak to us a little bit about diversification strategies you've talked to your clients about as it relates to other Amazon marketplaces?
Absolutely. So I think one of the first things, going back to the wine glass seller, right? When he started a launch, he had close to I think 250 SKUs. So he had different products, but his primary focus is, Ram, I don't want to just focus on the US market. What else can I do? What else is the next move, right? So immediately, if you're an NA seller, that's a North American seller, you're focuses either the US, Canada, the Mexico. But then they said, let's get out of the boundary. Let's diversify. Let's see which other marketplaces can we attack. One of the first things was the UK market, Amazon UK market. So that was the first biggest trend we saw. A lot of customers kind of introduce themselves to the UK market. The next biggest move we actually saw was in India, right? In India and Dubai, a lot of different sellers decided that let's do global expansion, right? Let's move across multiple different countries and try and sell the same product. Especially in the marketplace where we kind of understood that, especially I think in Dubai at least, the market was kind of new, raw sellers. It wasn't much, let's say, lucrative enough, and a lot of customers realize, hey, this is the right opportunity for us to kind of introduce our products, never seen products, and kind of hit the market at the right space, right? So uh, I would say UK was a top spot. Amazon India, although in India there was a couple of months halt before Amazon restarted the business. Amazon Dubai was the next spot, and the other big trend we actually saw was the neighboring place itself, right? Canada. It was the easiest solution. People could actually do that, and there was the next biggest trend, right? Kind of ensuring that you capitalize all on the marketplace itself.
And I love what you talked about there is just, if you're a US based seller, maybe the next logical step or the easiest step would be Canada or Mexico, or, identifying, just as you said, the UK or other regions that have, similar consumer habits, similar language habits, so the barriers to entry aren't as high. Now, can you talk about some of the other considerations sellers might have to take if they want to expand to other global markets?
I would say one of the other focus was, in terms of in terms of the other markets, was one in terms of the language itself, right? So, if someone's trying to go to the Europe market, trying to understand the language, trying to adapt into what is being really searched in Amazon or there, or let's say in Walmart, it's a bit of a struggle in the start, right? So let's say we had customers who were selling in the UK, but they couldn't really venture into, let's say, Germany or let's say France or Netherlands because one, they didn't have the warehouse solution. That's a logistics solution out there. Second, even if they had, uh, the communication was probably through the language itself. Right? Let's say through German, through let's say French. Let's say if you went to the Middle East, yes, you could speak in English and you can figure out, but let's say then you have to move to Arabic. Let's say if you came to India, then obviously you have to speak in Hindi and trying to figure out the language of that. So everyone had their own difficulties. One in terms of the language, I would say. Second, in terms of understanding the pulse. Right. Again, I'd say I go back to understanding the customer pulse because every different marketplace had a different trend. Uh, I'd say especially like in the US, it was more in terms of grocery line, office equipments. Right. I remember the trend in the UK was people buying a lot of health supplements. People trying to get themselves because they knew they couldn't work hard. They had to ensure they were fit. Sitting at home. A lot of them ended up buying a lot of. I think one of the biggest thing was the different types of tea. I've got to know a lot of different types of tea in the last few months because the research was done like that. Like I knew oolong tea was there, but for the first time when I heard oolong tea, I was like, okay, what is this? And then there was health benefits behind that, and I was like, okay, and that's new venture. And then obviously all the I would say the gym equipments, right? I mean that was the biggest trend. I myself ended up buying a lot of things, probably used the least amount, but it was kind of, let's say, even if your friends ended up buying it, you were like, oh, I'll give it a shot. Like what Ben said, you bought a lot of guitars, you kept it over there because a couple of the friends got it, and you're like, oh, I'll get it too, and I'll try it out. But yeah, it was all part of the whole trend itself, right? We kind of saw each other, and we're like, okay, let me try and do something else as well.
I think it's great that it truly is a seller's market right now, and I think we talk about striking while the iron is hot. We talk about diversification, but I think at a core fundamental, sellers and brands need to understand the market segment they're going after, the region that they're going to find the most success, and then from there try to correlate that to other success without trying to diversify too quickly. So that's another point I want to talk about is brands just spreading their wings too quickly and maybe entering a few markets when they can just focus on one. So can you tell us some strategies you have for sellers that are obviously have ambitious goals and want to grow their brands globally, but want to do it in a unsustained pace?
Absolutely. I mean, I think as I mentioned, right, the first part in terms of at least SellerApp side, we have a certain process in terms of how we onboard clients. Our first goal is to kind of understand, okay, what is your expectation, right? I mean, Are you trying to achieve a goal within 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years? And as we discussed offline as well, TJ, as soon as a client pays us the money, the first thing is the very next day they call us and say, "What's happening, guys?" And we say, there's a roadmap, right? I mean, there's a big roadmap in terms of the process. Just in terms of how the vaccine was done, there was a 9 month process to figure things out. So one of the first things we tell is, let's create a roadmap, let's create a plan of action, right? And one of the biggest chunks in that is, especially in the last few months, we have realized that Amazon's intake of inventory is less. So you can be only as ambitious as what Amazon allows or Walmart allows, right? You cannot go above and beyond that. And the second part is you need to ensure that it's a long game, right? It's not something we just do within a month and expect results and you get out. It's a 6 month strive. It's a 12 month strive, right? I had one of the accounts. We had one of the accounts. I would say that in the first through 2 months, 3 months, we probably had in marketing sense, we had 100% ACOS.
Mhm.
And when we told the client this would happen, we told one of the brands this would happen, and from the fourth month we saw the dip in ACOS. That means he was getting more money than he was actually spending in advertising, and that's where we hit the client and said, hey, for everything there's a strategy, right? You need to ensure as a new seller, even a brand seller, right? There are already other people selling the same products, right? Now you need to ensure that you're either different or you have to have the patience, because if you're expecting something within a month and you're trying to put things out, it's not going to work out. So be there for the long run, and ultimately your returns will come, right? And that's the core part, right? I mean, being patient, without that it's kind of difficult. I mean, that's with everything in life, right? I mean, if you have to get to a certain goal, we have to be all patient and ensure we follow the path line, and at some point in time things come and we just face it and we just move along with it.
And when we talk about diversification and being patient, they absolutely go hand in hand, because they're as a brand, or becoming a brand. I think many sellers go from sellers to brands, and I think that process takes time. And ultimately, what does the end game look like? Like you said, mapping it out. Are you looking to sell this business at the end, or do you run it in perpetuity? Probably not. But also, it's like, when you want to diversify, every strategy for every business is going to be different. We might say taking your 5 SKUs that are rock star SKUs and expanding to different marketplaces, that might work for someone. Or taking your 5 SKUs and adding another 5 SKUs or another 10 SKUs, that complement those existing products, might work for this company. And in this case, you're building a larger brand. In this case, you're building a global brand, right? So every strategy is going to be different, depending on what the seller, depending on what the brand wants, depending on who they're working with and what their history and traction is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the biggest trends we saw with the brands was the mask was a must. They ensured that mask had to be sold in
Mhm.
all their outlets, in all their stores, in all the Amazon stores, right? So every single brand, let's say from Zara to any one of those people, right? They ended up selling masks either way. So that was one of the biggest trends. Some of them, we saw that diversification happened in various different categories, right? They saw one hot selling product, they ended up putting their product, let's say, from let's say home equipments to let's say sanitizers, and that's where even let's say in terms of Amazon, they kept a restriction, right? When the N95 mask became a hot selling product, they ended up restricting customers because a lot of them just randomly sold different masks which were not at all good, and they kept a restriction to ensure that there was good enough mask or approved mask, you would say, right?
Right.
And the same way, kind of ensuring that uh, it's you have good brand selling, you have good product selling, the quality is good, and then the price range is good, right? Because you also want to ensure that there's a fair play in the market, right? And that is also one of the biggest focus, right? As a brand, you'd also need to ensure that one of the biggest, let's say, reports we ended up selling last year was the market report research, right? Where we gave a quick analysis about whichever category they wanted to sell and say, hey guys, this is a 15-page report, and this is how the market is for this product, and this is the trend from last year to this year, right? An over year's trend. And that was like, let's say, every month we probably had 15 reports like that to create, because as TJ said, if they wanted to diversify, they, at least the brands, want to initially understand whether this is a good enough market for them or not. Even the smaller sellers, some of them obviously, at least some of them who had the money kind of realized that, hey, okay, this is something we need to do. Some of them wanted a snippet of understanding, at least a fair bit of understanding, saying, okay, is this a market? But, ultimately, I think the core lies, one, you need to understand the trends in the market. And for that, you need data, right? You need the information to kind of understand, capture the information, put it in the right way. And second, you need some guidance, right? I mean, all of us play an equal part in every single aspect, right? I mean, from, let's say, from the Payoneer side, from SellerApp side, we have a role to play, and it's our job to kind of make sure that we guide the customers through that path, right? I mean, at least for us, it's more data analytics, provide the raw information. Payoneer side is the payment information, right? So that is one of the core things we want to ensure, right? I mean, whatever the challenge a customer faces, we try to ensure that we try to cover the challenges in whichever way possible.
And Ram, I think you've summarized it up and helped wrap this up for us perfectly. Is that SellerApp is a great partner of Payoneer and vice versa, and it's those two complementary services that pair well together to help sellers achieve their goals and help brands achieve their goals. So with that, I really want to say thank you for joining us here on the State of eCommerce, and turn it back over to you for the final word before we wrap up.
Thank you once again, Ben. Thank you once again, TJ. It was a pleasure speaking. As I said, right, I mean, the trends in 2021 from 2020 is here to stay. So as a caution, maybe as a word of advice, I would say it's a good time to be here. It's a good time for e-commerce sellers in general. It's a good time for sellers because they can experiment with things which is never done before. But at the same time, I would say before you make the calculated move, do some research, get some understanding, whether the market is good enough for you. And again, end of the day, it's for the long run, right? It's not something where it's going to be a 3-month game. It's not a 90-minute game. It's not a 120-minute game. It's probably a couple of years. It's probably a couple of months. So, as I said, be patient and understand what the customer wants. And as long as you can provide that, you're here to make money.
Awesome. I think that's pretty much spot on to what we do and kind of why we're here, to just educate the market on what the possibilities are. Bringing on yourself and companies like SellerApp. I absolutely really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I am going to share your email here, so if anybody has any questions, if you're interested in SellerApp and learning a little bit more about what they do, or potentially taking advantage of their offering, they're doing some really cool stuff. You can reach out to Ram there. For Ben and myself, thank you very much for joining us again. Next week we'll be back with Tim from Deliver, who is a fast fulfillment partner in the U.S., which supports a lot of marketplaces and websites for online sellers. So once again, Ram, thank you so much. Ben, thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, DJ.